Can you imagine an ancient Egyptian pharaoh being assassinated on his own territory, his body left in a horrifying state? His face was completely shattered. His hands curled up like claws. Today we are deciphering a mystery buried for 3,500 years. Let's travel back 150 years. Archaeologists were digging in a secret limestone cave in Egypt. They uncovered over 50 mummies of top pharaohs, including the famous Ramesses the Great. But among these absolute rulers, one stood out. It shocked the archaeologists. The mummy's facial bones were smashed beyond recognition. Its eyeballs crushed by a massive force. There was even a gaping hole in its skull. This was Pharaoh Seqenenretau of the 17th dynasty, known as the Brave. What happened to this man? Not only did he die a violent death, but his burial was the worst in history. According to ancient Egyptian royal standards, a pharaoh's brain had to be removed and the body carefully embalmed. But his brain was not removed. He had no embalming fluid. His body was carelessly rolled up with limbs twisted. It was a rushed, bloody burial. Top forensic expert Richard Shepard pulled out a 1912 autopsy report. It showed the pharaoh's head had suffered fatal axe blows. Was he killed in battle? Things are far from that simple. Ancient Egypt was in a brutal war. The fertile northern delta was occupied by foreign invaders called the Hyksos. They had horse-drawn chariots and powerful composite bows. The Egyptian army could only use outdated wooden weapons. Most would have surrendered. But Seqenenre was a tough man. He secretly built a massive military fortress in the southern desert, recruiting soldiers for a big move. The trigger for this war was absurd. The Hyksos king, hundreds of miles away, sent Seqenenre a complaint. The hippos in your pond are making too much noise. They keep me awake. Get rid of them. Can you believe that? Experts think this was a translation error. The words for hippo and soldier sounded similar. Either way, Seqenenre sailed his war boats down the Nile and headed north. So here is the question. Could those head wounds be from battle? Forensic expert Shepard noticed something strange. When facing a fatal attack, people instinctively raise their arms to block. Battle victims have defensive fractures on their arms and legs. But Seqenenre had no defensive injuries anywhere except his head. He did not fight back at all. Archaeologist Gary Shaw proposed a theory. He was captured and publicly executed. The enemy forced him to kneel, grabbed his hair, and struck him with 3 different weapons. First, a Hyksos bronze axe hacked his right eye and left cheek. Then a spear handle smashed his facial bones. Then an Egyptian-style broad axe cut his forehead. Finally, a long spear stabbed into his neck, right into the bone. But forensic expert Shepard studied the X-rays and shook his head. The killer was lying. He revealed a chilling hypothesis. The neck wound precisely severed the pharaoh's brainstem and spinal cord. Once stabbed, he was like a machine with its power cut off. Instantly paralyzed from the neck down. But he did not die right away. More horrifying evidence emerged. The X-rays showed the edges of those facial fractures had clear bone healing. That takes weeks or months. And his hands on the mummy were not tied that way during burial. They curled into claws from muscle contraction after lying in bed for a long time. Now take a deep breath. Here is the truth from 3,500 years ago. Seqenenre, in his first battle, was stabbed in the neck by an enemy spear. He was instantly paralyzed. His men dragged him back to camp. In the following months, this once majestic hero lay helpless on his sickbed, unable to move. His eyes stared at the ceiling. Until one night, death arrived. A killer crept into his bedroom. Was it because he was a burden to the national cause? A power struggle? Or an enemy assassin? The killer raised his axe and struck again and again until the body stopped breathing. That is why his mummy was so poorly embalmed. He died from a shameful assassination. His body had to be disposed of quickly. There was no time for proper mummification. Although his end was heartbreaking, his death ignited a fire. In just 60 years, his sons drove the Hyksos out of Egypt and united the two lands. Without his sacrifice, there would be no Tutankhamun, no glorious new kingdom built by Ramesses the Great. This scar-covered mummy is worthy of the 4 words on his coffin. The brave. Seqenenretau was a true hero who gave everything for his people and his country. His story reminds us that sometimes the greatest sacrifices come not on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments of suffering that follow. He is remembered not just for how he died, but for what his death made possible. The freedom of Egypt. The birth of a new era. A legacy that would shape history for centuries to come.